These days, every day, a new catastrophe seems to grace our screens. And in times like these, I can't help but ask, does anything that I'm making even matter? Does music matter? Do films matter? Do we as a society still crave for beautiful things while the world seems to be turning uglier every day? But some of the best art and music has come during times of great distress. Picasso painted Guernica while bombs were falling on Spain. Anne Frank wrote a diary while hiding from Nazis. John Lennon wrote Imagine while the Vietnam War was playing out on TV screens. All of these legendary pieces of work were made while the world was actively burning. And if the last few years have made you feel silly for caring about art, because it feels like you're rearranging the furniture while the house is on fire, I don't think you're alone. I think there's a lot of us who feel like this today. We came out of a pandemic that never really ended psychologically for us. We scroll past wars across the world like weather updates, and climate anxiety hums quietly in the background, and AI threatens to displace all of us and take all of our jobs. And somewhere in the middle of all of this, in 2026, you're supposed to sit down and make something. Write a song, a film, or paint something. Or care about your own little thing while the world seems hell-bent on destroying itself. So many artists and creative people across the world right now are sitting and thinking to themselves, is making art right now pointless? But I feel that not only does it have a point, it may be one of the most important things that we do right now. Let me show you how. Chapter 1. Why making art feels wrong now. Making art feels weird right now because there's no home for it. The primary discovery mechanism for a piece of music or art isn't an album or a room built for attention. We discover our art through our social media feeds. And the feed is engineered to hold your attention for as long as possible. So it's made for threat and outrage and for surface level observations, and not to necessarily go deep beneath the surface. Our brain also, weirdly enough, is wired similarly, in the sense that we notice danger before beauty. So when war footage, political chaos, climate dread, and your song appear in the same feed, our nervous system doesn't do a good job of separating them. Think about it. A drone strike, a hot take, a meme, a song, a painting, all in one scroll. All flattened into content. All packaged into identical rectangles. And all of them judged by that now one almost sacred metric, attention. And I think that this feed nature of information collapses our brain's ability to contextualize what we are saying. And that collapse of context makes you feel like, is there any point in me putting out my art in this space? Or that this space is meant for more important things? Historically, art has always had ritual spaces. You entered that space only for the consumption of that work. There was anticipation and separation in that space. When you enter, you know that I'm here to appreciate and observe the work that's presented to me. That's it. Online though, our art is competing with catastrophe at the same time. And because asking for attention for your little thing, in the middle of everything that you're surrounded by, seems morally flawed, asking for it starts to feel selfish. You're watching real suffering and then you scroll past your own work and think, am I being shallow? And this is because the platforms unfortunately have shrunk your work down into content. And when everything is content, nothing is sacred. In fact, the thing that seems to capture people's attention the least is when you post your song or your latest work of art. This content machine is built for reaction over reflection. And when everything is the same, nobody has the time to stop and ask, well, what does this mean? And in this noise, I think we as artists end up making ourselves smaller. Thinking that that piece of work you made or that song you wrote might be the lowest value proposition you have to offer. And if it doesn't have any value, then what's the point of making it? This systemic anxiety is something I think that a lot of creatives across the board are facing right now. Chapter 2. History was never calm. We like to believe that great art comes from stability. But honestly, nothing could be further from the truth. Some of the best pieces of work have come from deeply unstable conditions, as art acts as a reflection and a reaction to the times that we find ourselves in. It's exploring what humanity might mean in times when humanity seems to be hell-bent on destroying itself. Art, I think, gives meaning to unstable times and gives us the fables we learn from through the passage of history. Ancient Athens, the place we call the birthplace of Western art, was surrounded by war and hit by plague, and a third of the city was dead. And in that chaos, Sophocles wrote Oedipus Rex. Euripides staged Medea. They were wrestling fate, guilt, and power while their world was collapsing around them. World War I shattered the myth of progress. But meanwhile in galleries, Dadaism exploded through Marcel Duchamp's fountain, anti-art for an anti-human war. World War II gave us Picasso's Guernica, Anne Frank's Diary of a Young Girl. Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator was mocking fascism way before it became fashionable to do so. Work made under sirens and under occupation. work made under threat. In pre-independence India, as famine, repression and the trauma of the partition tore across the subcontinent, Rabindranath Tagore was writing Janagan and poems like those in Gitanjali. And in apartheid South Africa, when segregation was law and dissent meant prison, Miriam Makeba carried her songs to global stages. Even pop culture follows this pattern. Star Wars is rebellion mythology, born from post-Vietnam distrust. Hip-hop is survival journalism. Metal was the voice of a disaffected youth, which felt abandoned by the world they were born into. Art doesn't come after collapse. It shows up inside it and becomes its most important mirror. Chapter 3. Why does power fear art? Think about it. If your art and music didn't matter, power would never try to control it. The Nazis burned books. Music is the enemy of the authoritarian state, and protest artists are always silenced. In 2026, the acts of suppression are quieter and largely co-invisible. Now platforms and algorithms bury emotionally complex work, and other times funding for certain works disappears. Algorithms punish anything that doesn't flatten into content easily, or people can't grasp in a few seconds. Works of any artistic integrity pose a big problem for people in power. Because they expand your imagination, they're fundamentally wired to provoke and push your limits of thought. So rules stop making sense and authority starts getting questioned. The masses thinking for themselves has always been a problem for the man with the stick, and will always be, as it makes people harder to control. This is why I think censorship always starts with culture. As works of art and music go beyond telling people what to think, they change what they believe is possible. Chapter 4. What art does when nothing else works. In my personal view, art and creativity in times of conflict and hatred may be the single most important and unifying force in the world. You may not understand someone's views on life, but still connect with their songs. You may fall in love with a painting or films from a culture that you're politically supposed to despise. Your favorite author may be born in a country where you legally can't get a visa into. The creative part of our brain is that part which taps into the void, which language often can't articulate. It also synthesizes us and our experiences into emotion as much as a worldview. Which is why someone from across the world can vibe with a track made from someone from a completely different culture. And what art and music do is open you up to people and cultures you never thought you could understand. Empathize with people you thought you had nothing in common with. Imagine yourself on roads you've never walked. And imagine yourself alongside people you thought you would never meet. The imagination knows no boundaries. Which is why controlling the creative impulse, I think, accidentally ends up creating them. Imagination forces you to see yourself in the shoes of others, while a lack of it just keeps you focusing on the differences. So in my honest opinion, art and music might be the antidote to times when people seem incapable of understanding each other. And if not for now, then maybe for later. Maybe for when we look back and see not what was happening in 2026, but what all of us were going through and where we thought we should go next. Music, art and writing then become the voice of our collective spirit, teaching us where to go tomorrow and what we learned from today. So not only does making your art in a world full of chaos have a point, it might be the most important thing you could be doing right now. If you've stayed for so long, thank you so much for watching, and please let me know in a comment what you think the role of art and creativity is in times of crisis. As a musician and artist myself, I love sharing my songs with you, and here's a song that I made recently that I'm really proud of. And if you prefer more of these talking head style of videos, here's a video that I think you might like. If you liked or felt anything, please leave a comment. I would love to connect with you.